Well, in February, we focused a lot on love and the emotion of love and moving love and seeing love. And here in March, with everything that's going on in the world and how we're moving from winter to spring, I've really been thinking about sadness
Hey,
and kind of the expression of sadness. And I know that you and I try to live our lives in ways that help us see the similarities between our emotions, our physical conditions, and all the events of our lives. And I just am struck by how, with sadness and some of our other emotions, we're always kind of looking for the differences, pulling the sadness out, pulling the sadness away from all of the other things that might be contributing to sadness or actually energetically uh, strengthening our feeling of sadness. That's that tightness in our chest and that sort of just feeling like we're walking around with a cloud on our heads. So I guess one thing I've been noticing is we know that in our system that sadness is really um, that when we're feeling sadness, that when we're feeling especially a big load of sadness, and that can be jump started by events, it can be jump started by, say, having had COVID, or other kinds of conditions in our bodies that we're trying to move and shift. That when we're feeling that sadness, we can also know that sadness is going to likely create an imbalance or maybe weaken our lung and colon function. So one thing to be looking for when we're feeling sad is like, how have I had a chest cold lately? Did I just come out of COVID? And what's going on with my colon and my digestion? I got to say it, guys, is at the same time you're feeling sadness, are you also constipated? Do you also maybe have loose stools or diarrhea? Because sometimes sadness will share a similar frequency with all of that other activity in our bodies. And it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together and understanding and sort of looking at this with a new lens and seeing some of the nuances here. So that is the answer to your question. What's on your mind today?
on your mind today? That's always, emotions. It's our this way of looking at things changes things. Like I have my psychology background, right? And it used to be like you really want people to, first thing you want people to feel what they feel. That's true. But then you tend to get into these deep explorations of, what's the cause and all of that. And you're looking at some story and some event and, not really so much the biology of it, what's happening in your body. That was always missing in the way I used to think. So I think what you're saying is right. We know that they're linked, that the emotion and the body are linked. And if the emotion hangs on long enough and it shows a kind of imbalance, then we can know also that your body's not in balance either. So at the same time, we do want to feel the things that are happening. I mean, they happen. So that's okay. Like, cloudy days, rainy days happen, and then they pass. Thunderstorms also happen and then they pass. So things happen and they pass. There is a kind of basic impermanence. And, we have to recognize that. But we're not always as smooth and let's say the natural balance that we believe nature has. We don't always have. So, we have to pay attention to, like you said, did you have a chest cold? Or do you have one afterwards? Often people will have some episode of sadness and then some months later, end up with an upper respiratory infection and not really put it together, not really see like that's because they had some intense grief and maybe they're still having it.
Yeah.
And that can, I think you were also interested in like how this relates to seasons, like how could sadness be relevant in the spring?
Exactly.
What are
Yeah.
you thinking about that? I don't know much about that. I mean, I have things to say about it, but it's not because I've ever really thought about it before.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to remind anybody who's listening that Master Lou is going to probably be talking about this this coming Sunday in his regular talk, and I'll drop a reminder and a link in our on our page below here. But I mean, just, you know, one thing that came to me is that if we are thinking about the similarities of all of the functions of our bodies, where things connect, where they energetically share a frequency, right? Like we know, well, I'll just leave it at that, where they energetically share a frequency.
Yeah.
So that we know that moving into spring, for example, we know that wood and trees shares a frequency, an energetic frequency with the spring coming. And that also shares a frequency with our liver and our gallbladder. And there are relationships between the spring and the liver and the gallbladder and the lung. Of course, there's a very, very important pairing of support between lung and liver. So maybe a feeling of sadness shares a similarity with the onset of spring, because our lung and liver want to work together. They're such good friends, they're cousins, and they want to work together. And if we have had, for example, a chest cold, or we have had a great loss that we're grieving, or we're feeling sad about what's going on in the events of the world or in our lives, then that can make this transition into spring. It puts a little bit of a barrier, a little bit of an obstacle in how these cousins are going to relate to each other, how they're communicating and connecting with each other. So that might, you know, that sign of sadness might be like, hey, this is a really good sign that I want to give myself some more support to move into this spring transition, to jump into the spring energy, and to really, you know, take advantage of everything I can that relates to spring energy and liver and gallbladder function.
Yeah, great. Yeah. I mean, I think like what you're talking about is like a bit of a deep dive into the 5 elements. And, you know, but as we study this way of thinking more, this approach mostly that we've learned from Master Lou, we know the 5 elements are really important, and those relationships that you're talking about, you know, are really central. And as you start to be able to see them more clearly, which I know not everybody listening to this would, you know, have as much access to it as you have, but, you know, as you start to understand that all our key organs have these deep interrelationships, and the emotions behind them also, because their vibrations and frequencies are also important. So I think what you just shared is like, there's a way to kind of see, you know, through the veil into this you know, really amazing network of relationships where everything has to be in balance. And you're describing lung and liver. If lung is somehow, you know, under some kind of duress, then it's support that needs to give to the liver at this time when it's the liver's time to shine. Liver and gallbladder would mean there could be some complications to being able to fully step into the power of spring.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I think that these are one of the ways that knowing a bit more about 5 element relationships can be, you know, really helpful to help us see beyond the surface of what's really going on. We always say, get to the root, you know, the root cause, like these deeper energetic root causes of what's going on that we see. So I think you described it really, from what I know, really, really well.
Okay, so I know I went pretty deep there, but guys, it's a fantastic lens that helps us get out of our heads to try to understand the why of our sadness. Like, well, I have to understand, this was me 10 years ago, guys. I couldn't move forward because I was so stuck in trying to understand the why of my sadness, the why of how I was feeling this way, and the why the sadness was so stuck. And then I began to discover a way out through Qigong, through moving my body, through connecting to nature. So I'll give you a quick tip before we say goodbye, which is use honey. Get honey, get some raw honey. This is a wonderful way to support your lung function. It'll make your hair and skin so beautiful. And start your day with a tablespoon of raw honey and see if that in itself is just going to help move that sadness along a little bit, because nobody can eat a spoonful of honey and not feel a little bit less sad.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
A little sweeter. Nice.
So Look in the links below. Look in the comments below for links about upcoming liver support programs,
That's
and
right.
get yourself some more support to help shift some of this emotional cloudiness if that's where you are today.
Beautiful. Let's do it.
Okay. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you. I had my honey already today, so appreciate it.
You're a sweet dragon. Okay.
You're a sweet pig.
Thanks. See everybody soon. Bye-bye.